But for those of you, if this is your first time ever coming to the Bridge Club, first of all, I'm so grateful that you have come. This is a place we have conversations. PowerPoints are banned, so we will not be sharing a screen. This is an opportunity for conversation, and this is one that needs to be had. I'm very, very excited to be helping support the Veterinary Virtual Care Association, but more importantly, to be able to have many of the founders here tonight to be able to help answer some really big questions that the profession has been wanting to have answers to in preparation for their summit. And of course, because it's virtual care, we are having a virtual summit. We're not blaming it on COVID. We're just saying that's what's happening. So I'm really excited. Before we jump into who our guests are going to be this evening, the executive director, oh my God, Allie McIntyre. See, this is what's going to start happening. Allie McIntyre is here to say a couple thank yous and introduce our guests.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Catherine. Sorry that you're having some kind of meltdown or malfunction with your brain. So I'm going to put right now in the chat a register now link so everybody knows if you haven't registered already. That's coming through right now. I'll be managing the chat with the help of some of my board members. So if anyone has anything that they want to ask, go ahead and put that in there. I also, of course, want to thank our sponsors and our speakers that are supporting the summit. We have been really overwhelmed with wonderful sponsorships and amazing expert speakers that are going to bring to you, I think, everything that you need to know currently about virtual care in the veterinary profession. We're very excited to be bringing this forward. We're very excited to have the association launched with help of so many of the people that I see on this screen. So I wanted to shout out a thanks to all of our sponsors and speakers that are attending today. I'm going to actually put their names in the chat as well, so everybody take a look at that. And without further ado, I know we're ready for a toast, so I'm going to hand it over to board members that I adore. I love all my board members. We have Dr. Aaron Smiley. I'm pointing because he's right there. And then Jessica Vogelsang. So I think, Aaron, you're starting with a toast. Is that right?
Pressure's on. Here we go. To veterinary medicine, a profession that invites hope into the world every day.
Cheers.
That was fantastic. I like that one.
Nice.
Okay, so get ready. Here comes. We're gonna do a poll really quick. I'm gonna launch a poll so everyone should see the poll, so that everyone can start to take that. It'll help give us a little bit of a lay of the land on where everybody's at in particular. Okay, so we've got some real positive. We've got some people not answering yet. Well, I think, okay. We'll give it a second. I'm letting people answer the questions. This will help as we're teeing into our first couple questions as we go through this. So let me go ahead, and while that's coming through, because we are getting some really good stuff here, I did want to go ahead and let's jump with the first question. You know, why was it called virtual care instead of telemedicine? You know, often like we hear. Let's jump into some of these basic questions really quick, and then we'll come back and explain what some of the poll question answers were.
Sure, I can take that one if you'd like, Erin. We actually had a lot of debate about that because I think for most people, telemedicine is a word that we're really, really familiar with, but it was so important to us when we launched the Veterinary Virtual Care Association that we picked the word that really defined the future. Virtual care is so much bigger than just telemedicine. You know, telemedicine just means a doctor and their patient. And so when we talk about virtual care, we are talking about all of the communications that we do to educate our clients, incorporating our technicians and our staff and everything that we do to interact online. So it was important to us that we look at the big picture. So that's why we chose virtual care.
I love that. I love that. So I think it's going to be helpful as before we go into the next question. Here's what we're hearing from the poll. We have people still polling in, but right now, do you use a form of virtual care in your practice? So good news, 80% said yes, but we do have 10% saying no and 10% considering it. So the idea that we've got some people that are still really trying to figure this out. And do you offer asynchronous telemedicine? 70% yes, 30% no. So we've got some increased notions there. So I think I'm gonna leave that poll open just a little bit more because we've got more people jumping in and still responding. And if those statistics change, I'll share them. But I would like to know both of your opinion. Why has it taken so long for veterinary medicine to implement virtual care? Really kind of curious about this.
You want to do that one, Jessica? You go first.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You know, I think this is one of those things because we're very traditional in medicine, and we're so good at being one-on-one with our patients. This idea of taking it virtual seems really impersonal, and I think there are so many assumptions about the fact that you can only be of service when you're in the same room with the client. You need the hands-on stuff, and so what we're really trying to get people to understand is we do not think anybody should give that up. We want to add, we want to talk about what else can you do, like especially now in the pandemic, but all of this was true before. People still need information, they need advice. You know, anytime that you're talking to somebody on the phone or emailing, you're still doing virtual care. And so I think that there are a lot of misconceptions about what our roles are, and the fact that we are only helping a pet when we're in the same building together, because really nothing could be further from the truth. What do you think, Erin?
Well, I completely agree with that. And then what I would add is veterinarians don't like people not to like them. And I'm the biggest hypocrite. So when we start to talk about an area of practice that we have given away for free for generations, and then all of a sudden we start talking about monetizing it, it causes a lot of wringing of hands. We're very, very good at customer service. We're very, very good at telemedicine. But when we talk about monetizing it, it just causes veterinarians to get wound up. And what I have in my experience of offering paid telemedicine over the last 3 years is 85, 90% of my clients, after I say, hey, I'm going to charge you for this, they say, thank you. And it blew my mind, because I was one of those veterinarians at the beginning of it that would wring his hands and say, oh, Mrs. Jones is going to be so angry. She's just going to be so angry. And then I charged her and she said, thank you, Dr. Smiley. I thought, well, heavens to Betsy. How about that?
Heavens to Betsy. We like Betsy.
Do they actually say that?
I can get, oh, not heavens to Betsy. Well, in certain parts of Indiana.
Okay, yes.
So let's talk about some of these fears, because they're real. They're not made up, and monetization is one of them. Being in practice and actually physically touching the animal is another. So let's walk through some of these top fears, and then let's talk through how we're going to be helping address those in the conference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Erin, do you want to start with economics, since that's...
Okay, so fear, I would say one of the top fears is if everyone goes, hey, I can't convert my free telemedicine. They say, okay, VVCA, we buy what you're selling. We offer virtual care. We get it. It's very, very good. Veterinarians are very, very good at it. But by golly, I can't get my clients to monetize this because they're going to be so angry. And so what I would say is what we do in our practice is we blame it on the governor. And people, what? Well, what the governor requires us to do in the state of Indiana is he says that interactions and medical records must be in the medical chart. So when I text or I put something on Facebook Messenger, that doesn't always get into the medical record. That's inappropriate. The governor says a no-go for that. So it's an easy way for me to convert my clients from free telemedicine into paid telemedicine if I say, listen, this is what the governor makes me do. Oh, Dr. Smiley, we don't want you to get in trouble. So that's a big one, is as veterinarians, are we, the telemedicine that we're currently offering, are we being prudent with that? Are we following the rules? And a lot of veterinarians aren't, and in the past I had. So that's a big part of conversion, is to know what your state statute is and make sure you blame the governor, because clients don't want to get the veterinarian in trouble. And then the other thing that we do as far as when we talk about monetizing it is, hey, we can still offer you free telemedicine through the lay staff. Oh, good, Dr. Smiley, because all I needed was a refill on my script of insulin. Oh, yes, you're welcome to send a text in for that. One of the nurses or the assistants or the technicians or the receptionist, she'll be more than happy to take care of that. But if you have a medical question that requires a diagnosis and or a prescription, we're going to invite the doctor into that. And they go, yeah, that makes sense.
No, and that's, yeah, we have 10 videos about some of the most common myths and fears that people have that we're going to be debuting at the summit. So I'm really excited about that. The monetization is a big one. Time is a big thing as well. People are really nervous about this idea that I'm so busy already. I don't want to take on something new. I have enough going on. So we are going to be talking about ways to leverage your staff, so it's not all on you. We actually have some of the speakers here. I'm really excited about their sessions. Dr. Hannah Cheng Lau is going to be talking about workflow, because that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks for people is I don't even know how to start. I don't know who does what. You know, this sounds really confusing. Who's going to actually answer the call and transfer? So she's a pro at that. She's been doing that full time. We have Serena Podelsky here, who is a technician who basically does this entire wonderful career where she's freelancing. That's all she does. She's independent, and she's talking about how technicians are a wonderful, wonderful part of your staff. So we have got whatever fear you can come up. We've been anticipating it for the last 3 months. I'm thinking Mark Cushing, Sharon Quinn are going to be here talking about regulations.
Right.
That's one of the other big things. People say it's not legal where I am. And that's just not, something is legal where you are. I don't care where you are, even if you're in California like me, which is like the most restrictive state in the nation right now, there are some forms of telemedicine that you can do. So we are here to help you sort all of that out. My goal at the end of this summit is for you to leave with all of your fears allayed and chock full of ideas for you to get going, no matter where you are in your telemedicine virtual care journey.
I agree. And the practicality of what we're going to offer. So in those talks, just like what Jessica was saying, there's been different conversations that I've been a part of that are very theoretical. It's our aim in this to be very, very practical. So when you walk away, you're like, oh, I can do this. I know how to do this better. I know how to monetize that.
So let's dive a little bit into the idea of the regulations, because I feel like, while we didn't put that in the poll, the idea of the VCPR, the idea that each state is very different, what kind of guidance are we going to be able to give people when they come to the conference? By the way, which is free. If you have not registered, it is free for 5.5 CE credits. So what is it that we can help them understand to get over that hurdle?
Well, we have one of the speakers from the session here. Mark, did you want to explain that better than either of us could?
I'm a little shy, but I'll see if I can muster up a comment or two. So good news number one, and Jessica just said it, understand that part of what you do in a veterinary practice every day is you practice medicine under a practice act that defines what you, the veterinarian, can do and what the vet tech can or can't do, right? About 70% of what you do is give good advice to pet owners, to help pet owners work through issues they have. It doesn't fall under the practice act. It's just an expert, trained, who's had a lot of years dealing with pets, giving good advice. You can do that by the phone. You can do it on TV. You can put it on a carrier pigeon. You can give it in your dog's mouth and have them walk across the street. So there's a myth that everything you do the minute you walk into a veterinary clinic, suddenly the veterinary medical board's got monitors and are watching you trying to catch what you do or don't do. So that's just not true. And the good news is with existing clients, there's no restrictions, period. Okay, none, effectively. The only issue we debate about telemedicine and regulations is, can you start a new relationship, a couple going home to be quarantined and COVID, adopts a puppy, they go home, they're with the puppy, they don't have a veterinarian. Could they, God forbid, call you and get some good medical advice about what to do that first night, right? I'll tell you, 6 months ago, a lot of folks would say, no, don't you dare do that. I think today it's changed. And what you're going to hear are the examples of a state or a province, Ontario, that would be the 5th largest state in the United States, 15 million people. And guess what, folks? They've legalized it. And guess what? The board in Ontario confirmed they haven't had a single complaint in 3 years, not one complaint that a pet was hurt, that a pet was killed, that anybody did anything wrong tied to telemedicine. So we have a laboratory, it's right above Detroit. And guess what? It works. So we don't have to talk about some theoretical construct. It's been tried and they like it. And this is a province with a lot of veterinarians and sophisticated pet owners. And what they've found out is that people enjoy it. And guess what? It's led to more visits in clinic, not less. Now I'm stealing all of Aaron's thunder here about the Mythbusters, but I don't think you have another hour for me, Catherine, so I'll pause for that. But yeah, the regulation's a little friendly, and we're going to help them get more friendly.
So what I think you also hit on that I don't think people think about is the access to care. So can we talk a little bit about what that means with telemedicine in this world that we live in. And I don't know, Hannah, you're more than welcome to jump in if you want. I saw your head go like crazy, but if you'd like to. But I do really want us to talk a little bit about access to care.
I think this is the thing that I feel the most passionate about when it comes to telemedicine is what you just said, access to care. And I've been really lucky to be able to have been doing this for a little over the past year now, well before COVID, and seeing already so many benefits to our clients and to the practice well before any of this became kind of the necessity that it is now. I just can't tell you how many of my clients I've spoken to who are long-term loyal clients who have been injured, who are immunocompromised, who are elderly, have difficulty because they aren't able to drive or they don't have access to a vehicle. Not to mention all of the pets who have debilitating anxiety, inter-pet aggression, things like that, or honestly have maybe perhaps some sort of mild but contagious illness like kennel cough or a little bit of an upper respiratory in a young cat, things that I would love to keep out of my practice anyway, to keep all of the other healthier pets or maybe other immunocompromised pets safer. And so I think that is huge. I think if the field doesn't bring everything that we've learned through COVID about telemedicine into the future, even, hopefully we can return back to quote unquote normal, right? If we don't bring all of that, it's going to be such a huge disservice. I think COVID has really kind of opened everyone's eyes into what it might feel like to be immunocompromised. And that's a reality that so many of our community members have lived with for years and will continue to live with. And so that is I think that telemedicine really improves access to care, not just for clients, but also for patients who have a hard time getting to the hospital. That's a huge one for me.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Do you have anything you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that there's this assumption that if there's a barrier to actually showing up at the clinic for a lot of people. And the assumption is if you tell people they have to come in, that they will. And, that's only true for a small percentage of people. If we don't make ourselves accessible to them when they can't come in, the reality is they don't, and they don't get care. And so when we talk about access to care, there's really two populations that we serve, the people who could come to us. And so telemedicine and virtual care offers us a way to provide for them even in a better way than we could otherwise. If you have that immunocompromised client who would come in if they had to, but they'd really rather not, we have options now that we didn't have before. And then the other part is there is a significant part of the pet owning community that does not get care at all. They have barriers that are financial, that are geographic, all sorts of different reasons, and they are not accessing any care whatsoever. And so that's one of the things that's extraordinarily exciting to me, is just this idea that we have, millions of pets who have never seen a veterinarian and never would. So now we have tools and ways that we can actually help them do better and live better. And so those are both two very, very important ways to look at access to care. And we're going to be discussing both of them at the summit. And I think that's something that everybody can be passionate about, because who doesn't want life to be better for the animals? That's why we got into this field to begin with.
In the last 2 weeks, I serve a community that's a poor Rust Belt community, and it's been interesting because people can't get into the veterinary clinic. The emergency clinic closed, and so people are saying, "Hey, I've got to wait 5 hours." And so, just in the last 2 weeks, the supply of veterinary medicine cannot meet the demand, and we're so thankful that we've actively engaged in telemedicine and virtual care so that we can continue to meet the needs of our clients. Because without that asset, we would not be able to. And I had literally, I'm not exaggerating, 2 clients that said, "I went to the emergency clinic. They told me it was a 5-hour wait. I can't do it." And so it's an interest. Now, will that last forever? No, but right now it is. And so that's an interesting phenomenon.
So I love that. So what kind of tools are we going to be helping or providing during the summit that will help practitioners who are not used to potentially showing empathy on camera? So how are we going to bridge that for them?
So we have some really, really talented, experienced people that are going to be talking about how to actually communicate online. There's little things that you don't even think about. We were just discussing this morning about how you're supposed to look at the camera so that people, like, you can't actually look at the screen like you want to look at the camera. We have people who have been studying this and been doing this forever. Deb Leon, if any of you know her from Whisker Docs, has taught thousands of veterinarians and technicians about how to establish empathy using your voice, because she runs a service that actually does a lot of telephone calls. So there's so many different things that wouldn't naturally come to you, but we can train you how to do that. We have people who've done it successfully. Aaron, actually, because he does everything asynchronously. And so he's not even talking on the phone when he does telemedicine, he's texting. So there's a whole nother set of rules, right? And don't you have a list of emojis that you can use?
5 emojis. You got to stick to your 5 best. No poop emoji. Even though it's funny, you don't use it. You just don't use it. It's just off limits. And no dancing salsa girl. You just don't use dancing salsa girl.
No, I love that one.
I know, but it's culturally, I don't know. Like, what does it mean? Is it suggestive? I don't know.
But, you know, and I mean, I think all those things are really true, right? Because our goal here is to help people sort of fast forward over some of those learning bumps. Who knows? There may be some really extraordinarily offensive emojis that no. So Shay Cox is here. She is amazing. She does hospice. And so I think there's a whole nother set of rules about texting about hospice care. You probably don't use emojis at all. So, you know, I think all of those things, that they're very, very specific lessons that we're here to help people. And these are lessons from the trenches, you know, people who've been doing it.
Allie did the dancing salsa girl. You rap.
I was waiting.
So as far as the other tools that we're going to be offering, because there are a lot of hurdles for a practice who is not currently using telemedicine or virtual care in their practice, to try to implement, making sure that they've got cloud software, making sure. So are we going to help navigate that for those practices who are like, well, if they text me, I guess that's what I'm going to use?
Yeah. And then I think we'll discuss as far as different, so how to pick platforms, right? So very generically, because it feels like it's an ocean of everything, and I'm ignorant about a lot of the intricacies of technology. So how do we make that as far as a level playing field for the veterinarian to be able to ascertain, is this worth paying for? What do I need with security? All that kind of stuff.
And security is a big issue these days. So that is really powerful. Do we dive into that as well in the whole process? I apologize for asking that if I didn't know.
For security stuff, we're covering all of those different things. And, you know, the other nice thing about the way that we're doing this summit is that there's also going to be chat. So you can still ask your questions of the speakers. And, you know, this is not something that's just going to be a one and done. The conference is going to be live for Allie, 2 months afterwards. People can still access the material. You know, when we're here for you at Vivica to continue to answer those questions as they come up. To your point about technology, one thing I did want to mention is that we have a wonderful session about using your website. I think that's, you know, the people who run your website are some of your most underutilized experts who can do things that seem really simple, but will make your life so much easier, especially when you're getting telemedicine off the ground. Do you have web forms up? If you don't have web forms up, you're making your life so much more complicated. For even that one little thing, just the technology, which is not my forte. I hire really smart people. So we have those really smart people coming on just to let you even know what's possible. Because if you don't know what's possible, you're not going to know to seek it out.
So I will say the speaker lineup is beyond impressive. And Allie, do you want to piece that huge speaker lineup? I mean, because just talking, when you talk about the websites, the fact that we have Adam Greenbaum, we have Bill Schroeder, and we have Robert Sanchez just doing that to help you. I mean, that is unheard of because of their talent and what they offer. So I really do highly encourage, even just understanding how you should audit your own pieces to understand what are you missing that'll really make this bigger. But one of the things I think is most interesting is we all hear about virtual care. You know, we have the legislators, everyone's talking about it. This is so important on the human side. So are we going to take any learnings from this? Are we going to be able to figure out what they're doing that we should be doing? Are we talk about that?
Yes. No, not at all. We were just going to start over. Yeah, we do. We actually have some folks from the human side, and I have to apologize that I don't have the list. Is it Chris
Chris
Turner and Clint Phillips?
Yeah.
Chris Turner.
Yep. So we've got him, and they've got, so on their technology, they allow veterinarians and physicians to be on the same platform. And so interesting as far as what works on the human side, because the human can create a VCPR, but remotely, and they've been able to do that. And so they obviously have a lot more limitations with a third-party payer system. So how we can explore the freedoms that we have as veterinarians, and then to be able to create a working discussion for how to continue to move the profession forward to not limit ourselves. I think that'll be valuable from the human side.
So does that also then tee into the notion of specialty care? Because people seem to think that this is only for the surgery rechecks, or just check the ears, look in the mouth. So let's talk about that. What does this mean with specialty care?
We have got the most extraordinary specialists out there, as you know, and, a lot of times you just call them up, right? And you pull them away from their day and you ask them for their advice on something. And just like everything else, it would be nice for them to be able to get reimbursed for their time as well. And so there are some absolutely phenomenal business models that specialists have set up where they will either teleconsulting with you, or in some cases, if the VCPR is available, can consult directly with clients. And so I don't know how it is for you guys in your areas, but for us, there's oftentimes, a month or two wait to get into the specialist for our clients. And this allows access, again, talking about access much more quickly for our clients. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is this idea that you can actually bring specialty care into your clinic without the person then having to transfer their pet to that specialty hospital through teleconsulting. And so there's some really, really great applications. We have a couple different specialists that are going to be talking about their setups. I think Caitlin DeWild from FIDU is going to be here to check on who else we have on our list, but we're going to be talking about that as well.
And that goes right back to what Hannah was talking about, is access to care. So if we can bring those specialists into, right, because what happens for a client, and you guys, I'm preaching to the choir, but to get to the specialist, it's a monetary commitment. But then in a working town like mine, that means that the hourly worker has to take off of work. So not only is she paying for the appointment, she's paying in lost wages as well. So as we invite telemedicine and virtual care and technology, all of a sudden then we allow more care to more people. That's a win.
I think that's really huge. One of the things that I didn't want to step over quickly, because we do have Shay here, is the idea that we are going to talk about how telemedicine works with hospice care. Can you dive into that just a little bit, Shay, for us and share some of what you're going to talk about?
Oh goodness, I wasn't planning on that, but
well, so, you show up at the Bridge Club.
Just out of the shower. So yeah, Danny McVetti and I have a slot together talking about the importance of hospice care and telehealth. And I think more importantly, our conversation dives into the ability to establish the VCPR electronically as opposed to an in-person exam, because by the time they get to us for hospice, they've already had multiple exams by the referring DVM and specialists, and they're looking for us to carry on that care for those last months of life. And the fact that we can't, what ends up happening is both the patient and the client suffer for lack of care because of that barrier. So my plea is to rethink how we can establish the VCPR for hospice end-of-life patients.
I think that's going to be really, really huge. Before we go to talk about a little bit more of what we're going to cover, have we, based on what you've heard thus far, is there any topics that you're wishing had been brought up that are not being covered off on? I'd love for folks, so you can either private message me or bring that forward. But I did get one in here that talked about, we're going to talk about how people are educated moving forward, because the idea that it's great, we're learning it, but we've got all these students, and if we're trying to change, how is that going to happen? So that one, so thank you.
I'm super jazzed about that. So Texas A&M is obviously doing it. They have a concerted effort in this area. And then the University of Illinois has now got a course on telemedicine. So I think that is instrumental. When I go and lecture to students about telemedicine at Purdue and Illinois, the first time I went to lecture a couple of years ago, I thought, well, this is going to be a piece of cake. These are millennials, Generation Z or X or whatever's next. This is fine. And they looked at me like I had two heads and I was selling snake oil. I thought, oh my gosh, like I wasn't prepared. And the reason is because, right, they are reiterating what's being taught, and nothing inappropriate, nothing wrong, but to be able to open the student's mind to these ideas that they can add value day number one to their practice with paid telemedicine is huge. And so I'm excited to see, as far as the veterinary colleges, institutionalize education about telemedicine.
So I got another one here, and I think this is, and Serena, I may have you jump in on this one, so sorry, I don't mean to call you out either, but I do think that we talk so much about the veterinarian and quantifying the role of the veterinarian and putting the cost behind it, and what can this mean for the practice overall?
Yes, so for my business, what I do for clients, I don't work in a clinic anymore. I haven't worked in a clinic in 2 years, but my clients call me for questions. They always have questions about whether it's like flea, tick, heartworm, anesthesia, if they have a new puppy, new kitten, they all have questions. Whether I can help, explain what good pet enrichment would do, or some type of training program, what vaccines actually do, what the letters mean, all that kind of stuff. I break it down for them. I actually have a lot of actual digital pet care courses for pet owners, walking them through what to expect in an annual exam. I have a checklist for them, how to handle that, how to take care of senior pets, what to expect as they get older. Like I have a diary about seizure care, new puppy checklists, and a whole training program for puppies that's all digital, a new dog checklist, things like that. So a RVT can be really utilized out of a clinic setting without a DVM in a very safe way. And for a vet tech to do that and feel empowered doing it can really help pet parents, as well as help other RVTs be empowered in a clinic setting if they want to do that, but also do it on their own if they wanted to do it that way too.
Do you guys want to add anything to that, or?
No, I just think, I think anybody who's been using virtual care for a while has realized that that's probably one of the greatest untapped resources is your technician staff. And so it was really important to us to have wonderful speakers like Serena here. Nicole Rogers from Whisker Docs is also going to be on talking about that. I think Hannah can probably also speak to how important, the technicians are. And so it is really important if you guys have, the rest of your staff, if they're not sure that this is a summit that's going to be useful to them, it will. We want this to be something for everyone, to help everybody understand that virtual care is at its best when it is a team effort. And that's something that we're working into this conference as well.
So I love that.
In states that allow indirect supervision of veterinary technicians, this is vital information that you're going to get. So you can incorporate your telemedicine platform with your registered veterinary technician and allow for indirect supervision. I mean, that is huge. So if you're scratching your head going, oh, geez, I don't even understand what you're talking about, make sure you tune in.
Wow, that's really valuable. So we got it. We knew it was going to happen. More questions on VCPRs.
Let's do it.
Is there, get ready, hunker in.
All right.
So is there actually a time limit on a VCPR? Do they expire? Especially amid COVID. So I would like to understand that, because with everything that's been happening. So who wants to take that one?
Catherine, let me take that. There's about 8 states that have a time limit, namely that you have to have seen the pet within typically 1 year or 12 months. In some cases, again, a few states, they limit it to the specific condition you saw the pet. That's not the norm, but there are a handful of states. COVID loosened that up. And the most progressive state in the country, some of you may, Cheryl's here, are Michigan. Michigan's the most progressive state in the country right now on its telemedicine laws. And that's interesting, not everybody knows that. So states recognize, really following the human healthcare side, that they needed to loosen up, and the veterinary practices jumped in, as Aaron and Jessica have said, and have made it work. So there's a small number of states that have a time limit. My suspicion is in the next 2, 3, 4 years, all those time limits are going to go away. If I've got a relationship with, Jessica, and she's my veterinarian, the notion that when a different paw of my cat has a problem, that I have to put her in a car and go see her so she can give me some intelligent advice won't make sense, particularly when I can use Zoom or FaceTime and take a look at it. And frankly, It's a resistance to technology. I mean, if everybody wants to just drill down to why have we fought this, we had a way of practicing medicine, which Jessica and Aaron talked about, that was one-on-one. And then we have a group of folks, many have hair of my color, that which is ash blonde. I'm kidding, but there are a lot of baby boomers that don't want to adopt technology to change how they do their work. And you know what? Here's the great news. You don't have to, because you don't have to practice virtual care if you don't want to. You know, you can tell people to climb up and go into a tree fort and meet you in a tree fort if that's where you want to treat them. That's okay. It's all fine. You just do it the way you want. And I think as that settles down, the time limit's going to go away, because the idea that the veterinarian can't make a good judgment in her mind about how she can help a pet owner and their pet, I think goes away, because that's what it all comes down to. What's the veterinarian comfortable with? And they decide, and they should be able to decide.
I think that's really helpful. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, he's the grand poobah of VCPR stuff. So
we've got 2 questions in there, and I want to be sure that we're getting. So Mark, we'll just let you follow up talking, and then Heath, I'm going to actually have you jump in yours, because I think I may be understanding your question. But so Mark, Simon's asking, can you comment on the triage telehealth services that argue that they cannot be practicing veterinary medicine simply just by giving advice if a pet should see a vet, thus they don't need a VCPR?
So there's 3 things certified vet techs can't do in virtually every state, and just 3. You can memorize these. 1, you cannot perform surgery. You're not going to do that in telemedicine, even if you're a veterinarian. Number 2, you can't diagnose or prognose. You can't scientifically, medically say, this is what your cat or dog has or doesn't have. This is what I'm predicting they'll have or not have tomorrow if you don't do something. And 3rd, you can't prescribe medications. That's it. Okay, that's a very narrow, but that's the defined universe of what's reserved to a veterinarian and not allowed to a certified or registered or licensed vet tech. Okay, Deb Leon will tell you from Whisker Docs in the millions of calls they've had, and they track every call, 70% of the calls, i.e. the telemedicine engagements, are for just good advice. I know Sharon, can tell you from her experience with her practice with the Nelson Animal Hospital and with SmartVet up in Ontario, that they want good advice, which often leads to coming in. So the fear that you're about to have an investigator swoop in because you said, you know what, you might want to go see a veterinarian, but that call that you should go to an emergency doc or not is not a diagnosis, it's not a prognosis, it's just good common sense advice from an intelligent, trained person. And I would defend that every day in court if I had to, and I'd win.
So Heath, I'm going to have you go ahead and take yourself off of mute because I think I misunderstood your question. So it's better to hear it from you.
Yeah, so what we saw with our Pet Pro clinics, it was really interesting, was they started adopting the telehealth that we offered for curbside service. They were actually using telehealth to bring pets back to the clinic in a way that it kept the patients outside safe in the car, but they were doing the telemedicine basically with the pet inside and the pet parent outside. And so I'm just curious, is anyone else seeing this, or are there trends forming around this area?
We do that. So what we'll do is we'll turn it on. It's a virtual, the platform that we use has a virtual waiting room. So they can click on a link and then they just stand in a waiting room until I click a link and then everything's live. And it's good because it makes the pet parent feel more comfortable. I think that what the challenge is to roll that into monetization. So that's great. Oh, the adoption of technology, fantastic. And what I would challenge veterinarians to do then is don't stop there. Don't stop there, because that doesn't make your life any easier. It definitely is excellent customer service, but it doesn't make your life any easier, and it's not necessarily generating more revenue. So I encourage veterinarians, don't stop there.
I mean, what's interesting with that is we've seen, especially the ones that were most intrepid with telehealth in general, this was almost a gateway in. Hey, I'm using it now in my practice, and then all of a sudden, again, because we've always had the ability to schedule as well, but everyone that starts with curbside service eventually increases the more traditional version of telehealth.
I'll mention something too. My hospital is starting to do that as well, and we call it like an augmented exam. just a way to differentiate it from like our purely telemedicine exams. And, you know, same thing, client comes in, sits in the parking lot, pet goes into the hospital, and then the veterinarian is able to stream what they're doing. I think the client really sees the value that way. My hospital as well as an open hospital, so we're really used to having clients be there through every step of the way. And so our doctor team is actually much more used to that. And we were finding that it did increase our efficiency in terms of curbside with COVID, because we weren't having to examine the pet, find a place for the pet to hang out, get on the phone. And so just breaking it down into that many pieces. And then of course the client says, oh, I forgot to tell you something. Can you check this and this and this? And you're like, okay, I got to pull Fluffy out of the cage again and then call you back later, especially when you have people who have their phones on silent or blah, blah, blah. And so just trying to reduce that. I'm all about reducing phone traffic, trying to get people off the phone. I do think that I totally agree that you have to use that as training for your client to then have an easier time using the rest of your virtual care capabilities. But I do think that you can see some in the moment advantages when you're using curbside or augmented care. But I totally agree. You absolutely can't stop there.
So any final questions before we jump in and make sure that we're definitely giving one more shout out to our sponsors that were able to help make the VVCA Summit possible, as well as making sure that everyone sees that we have posted the registration link in there once again. But I wanted, before we send this for parting thoughts, any final questions that people have about how amazing? I bet the big one is, when is this?
What? I was wondering that.
When is it, Aaron?
Well, oh gosh, you put me on the spot. It is August 18th. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, baby. August 18th.
So
11 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
What time I interrupted you?
11 a.m. Eastern.
Yes. So it's the perfect opportunity, and then you can also watch it on demand. But I want to be sure that we are not forgetting the opportunity for people to be able to see that. All of you on Facebook Live, hopefully you're being able to get all this information as well. So as we do come to our evening, we're always very careful about people's time. Allie, do you want to just rattle off our charter sponsors? I would love to give them a shout out because they really have been incredibly helpful.
Absolutely. We've got Covetrus, we've got Pet Pro Connect, Pet IQ, Royal Canin, and Zoetis.
I think that's amazing. And I do want to give a couple extra shout outs to the Animal Policy Group as well, for the fact that they've also helped been such a big part of coordinating everything that has been also happening. So I did want to do that special call out, not just because I love and like to suck up to Mark, but just so with that, we're getting to our end of our evening. So if everyone will raise their glass, and let's let Jessica do our parting toast, but please be sure you share this out with all of your friends, everyone, to be able to come to this. This is an absolute incredible opportunity to get some great intelligence, and hopefully we've given you nice little tidbits of where this is going to go. But Miss Jessica.
Right. So this has been probably one of the most challenging years, right, that any of us can remember. It's been a really, really rough summer for clinics. And so I just want to thank everybody for their optimism and, you know, their enthusiasm in making some lemonades out of these lemons. And so a toast to all of you for bringing the future to us right now. The future is now. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.